Now, before we start the official part of the evening, I did want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I am Renee Bianchi, the new President of Women Lawyers Association of New South Wales. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a really wonderful to walk in and hear this chatter. I think we're all very excited that we're able to do this. I know that I certainly am. It's been sort of 12 months. The big draw card for the evening, the Honourable Justice Virginia Bell. I got a call from her today in Chambers. She unfortunately is quite unwell and won't be joining us today. But I have a surprise guest speaker who very kindly agreed to speak about 3 hours ago. So I'll introduce our guest speaker in a moment. Tonight is the launch of our 2021 program for Women Lawyers Association of New South Wales, and also the launch of our Achievement Awards. They are an event that are held it is an event held every 2 years, and nominations actually will open. I think they have opened when I looked on the website, and they will close on the 31st of May. They acknowledge a range of different categories of women who have excelled, whether that be regional practitioners, corporate in-house counsel, Women Lawyer of the Year, we have Rising Star of the Year. There are a number of categories for individual awards, as well as an organisational award. And that is to acknowledge a firm that has improved and continues to provide leadership for women lawyers in the profession. Now, because we had an online AGM last year, we didn't have our usual Christmas cocktail function. There are just a few little notes that I wanted to make. I wanted to thank the outgoing members of our executive, Nia Goodman, who had served on the executive committee for quite some time, Lisa Toe, who was our treasurer for quite a number of years, and Jackie Vincent. I also wanted to pass on a huge thank you to Larissa, our outgoing president. I have very big shoes to fill. I feel like I say that all the time, but as I was thinking about this speech, I thought Larissa did so much in such a challenging year last year. Not only where we all felt the impact of COVID, but there was also the sexual harassment and bullying within the legal profession. Looking back on the issues that were of great importance to women lawyers, we could not have had a better president. So thank you very much, Larissa. And please join me in thanking Larissa. I also wanted to pass on congratulations to Holly Lamb. I don't know whether Holly is here yet. She has a very small baby, number 2, so she definitely has her hands full. But Holly was recently elected to the position of Vice President of Australian Women Lawyers. So Holly has stepped into that role, and it's quite exciting that we'll be able to do some more work with the Australian Women Lawyers. Please take the opportunity tonight to meet members of the new executive. I see a range of them here. I wasn't going to go through all of your names, but my directive to all of you is please make sure you mingle and introduce yourselves to people. No pressure at all. Now, our program for the year, it again builds on the work that we did within sexual harassment, bullying and discrimination. Our vision has always been and continues to be improving the status and working conditions of women lawyers and providing leadership on those issues affecting women and the legal profession by driving and advocating for change. We launched the very first strategic plan for women lawyers towards the end of last year. Whilst not everyone finds strategic plans exciting, I do. And I urge you all to have a look at the website where we've posted that. That is a 3-year strategic plan and will drive our work over the coming years. The main parts of the strategic plan are to do what we've always done, and that is to provide a meeting place for women lawyers and to foster collegiality within the profession. That includes an education and events program. Talking to members of my executive, whilst Her Honour is unwell tonight, I took that as, well, she will be speaking for us at an event very soon. So I will raise that with her, and hopefully we can all come together again to hear Her Honour speak. We will continue with our annual law firm comparison data collection, which I think is particularly important when we talk about remuneration or transparency around remuneration. I feel like my microphone's sort of coming and going, but that's all good. We also will continue our Welcome to the Law program, and I think a number of people in this room have participated in that in the past. And that is for those women lawyers at the beginning of their career to provide them with skills going forward. We also will continue with our events, the Janet Coombs lunch for new female barristers. And Janet, thank you for joining us. I saw you before. Yep, there we go. And we'll also continue with our various subcommittees, which there will soon be a call out for general members to join those. A big drive of mine for this year is to have greater engagement with our members, and we hope that this is the start of many times that we can all get together. We will also look at joining with like-minded organisations, and already we have just commenced a subcommittee with the Asian Australian Lawyers Association, which is looking at cultural diversity within the profession, so a very important issue. We'll also continue to be hopefully a clear and respected voice for law reform, and part of that will be the issuing of position statements, so our position as women lawyers is very clear. And I see Louise off to my side, who's a member of our executive and our incoming treasurer, and I approached Louise to actually put together a draft position statement for the Uluru Statement from the Heart, so that the position of women lawyers is very clear that we are in support of that statement. We will also continue to promote and drive the advancement of women in the legal profession, and that includes all women in the profession. And that's again where this subcommittee with the Asian Australian Lawyers Association comes in. And then it's the things that I find particularly exciting about ensuring the long-term stability of our association. We are coming up, I think it's about 70 years. I'm looking at Larissa, I think my sums were about 70 years. We want to continue on, and we want to ensure that we continue to meet the needs of women lawyers, but also continue to push for and drive that change. So we have a very full agenda for the year. I will be calling on all of you to assist. As for our upcoming events, before I get to our secret guest speaker, we have our International Women's Day lunch coming up on the 10th of March. Our guest speaker there is Catherine McKernan from Homelessness New South Wales, and the funds that we raise at that lunch will be going towards the Women's Housing Company. I think from the impact of COVID was particularly felt by women suffering from homelessness, and so we thought as women lawyers that we could raise some funds for that sector. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, who is the President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, Emeritus Professor Roslyn Croucher AM, who commenced her term as the President in July 2017. Prior to taking on the role as President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, she was President of the Australian Law Reform Commission. When you look at the law reform inquiries that she led during her time, some of those really touch on the priorities of women lawyers for this year and include family violence, disability laws, age barriers to work, elder abuse, and the serious invasions of privacy. She was also awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award from Women Lawyers New South Wales in 2019. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Professor Roslyn Croucher as our guest speaker.
Thanks Renee, and it's so good to see people in 3D. I think this is the first time that in a year that I've had an experience like this. I did a flight to Canberra last week, which was the first time I got on a plane since I hurried back from London, arriving on the 20th of March and straight into home quarantine. And that was like a tsunami behind me because I'd been in Geneva and then in London. So I saw exactly what was playing out. So we had no hesitation, my chief executive and I, who was there, in immediately activating our pandemic plan, which we already had, and going into the cloud, which we were all set to do. So it's been an extraordinary year, but it was a year that disappeared. So it's so lovely to see everyone in 3D. I also acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And because we're just near Barangaroo, I want to pay a tribute to Barangaroo, who was the wife of Bennelong. And she was an extraordinary intermediary in her day. So given we are a large group of women and some excellent men, but including an acknowledgement of Barangaroo. And I also should say we have many esteemed judges in the audience, including the Honourable Robert McClelland, who as Attorney General was responsible for some of those terms of reference to which you referred in my law reform work. And I acknowledge members of long standing, Janet Coombs especially. I think Janet, from now on, I'm going to call you Dame Janet. You have that kind of status, so Dame Janet. And also to our newest members, Ashley. I just met Ashley Lister, who is one of our very new members who's getting admitted tomorrow. And indeed, we are turning 70. We're turning, we're turning 70 in next year. It was 1952 that the Women Lawyers Association was set up. Now, my job to stand in for Virginia Bell is not something one takes on lightly. So I'm not going to pretend in any way, shape or form. And I also, when Catherine rang me, yes, only a little while ago, the brief was to introduce the program, and I said, well, what is the program? and so I have no idea. I mean, you've given a bit of a heads up to it, but I was reminded of something I read. So I'm going to share this little story. I'm a great fan of Alexander McCall Smith, the wonderful writer, but in his various oeuvre, he has a trilogy which is essentially a spoof on German academics.
It's my favourite. I want to know where either one is.
And it's a trilogy of this wonderful Professor Dr. Moritz Maria von Egelfeld. And his claim to fame is that he wrote the landmark text in Romance philology, namely Portuguese irregular verbs. Now, Professor von Egelfeld was very envious of one of his colleagues who was going to America. And he really, really wanted to go to America, to be invited to America to do a speech. And through this group called the Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, the German Academic Exchange, he was invited to give a presentation in a little town in Arkansas. So he was very excited about this, and he was expecting to give a speech on Portuguese irregular verbs. So he turns up to speak about Portuguese irregular verbs to discover there had been a mix-up. He had been confused with Professor Martin Egelfold of the University of Münster, whose specialty was dachshunds. Indeed, he was the world authority on dachshunds. Thankfully for Professor von Egelfeld, the reception before his speech was well lubricated. So he began. The sausage dog is a remarkable dog. It differs from other dogs in respect of its shape, which is similar to that of a sausage. It belongs to that genus of dogs marked out by their proximity to the ground. In most cases, this is because of the shortness of their legs. If a dog has short legs, we have found that the body is almost invariably close to the ground. Yet this does not prevent the sausage dog from making its way about its business with considerable dispatch. He glanced at his watch. 1 minute had passed, leaving 9 minutes to go. Anyway, it goes on like that. So the poor gentleman just kind of rambled around the subject, as one might if one had a very short time to prepare a speech for such an eminent group, as an understudy or replacement for such an eminent speaker. Anyway, that was the story that I recall. But it's a wonderful trilogy. It's called The 2.5 Pillars of Wisdom. I tend to pick them up these days in second-hand bookshops and then give them away because I find it hilarious. He's a wonderful writer, and this is a particular genre that was absolutely delightful. Anyway, coming back to the subject of the evening, New South Wales Women Lawyers is in her 70s almost now, and in the leadership roles, the baton changes from one fabulous woman to the next. And we are up to our 41st baton change to Renee Bianchi as president. And each executive committee comes up with an excellent program, whatever that might be. And I am so looking forward to learning more about it. Each year, each decade, we invest our intellects, our energies, and our own lived experiences into thinking about helping each other, and from one generation to the next, and each generation hoping that they can change things. I have been reminded several times over recent months, years, of a French saying, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Hence the subject, I imagine, of the programme of work for this year, to which you alluded. But for women, it just means the more we need to stick together, the more we need to support each other and enlist wonderful allies in support of the things we hold dear, and just how important New South Wales Women Lawyers has been and will continue to be in support of women lawyers. Now, I was also asked to talk about the awards. Renee has given us a taste of that. They are biannual, which was fortunate last year because we missed that year anyway and didn't miss a beat. So we had also planned for the biennial recurrence of the awards this year. And it'll be on the 3rd of September, it's already in my diary, and Her Excellency, the very fabulous and Honourable Margaret Beasley, AC QC, will be our guest speaker. There are 12 awards from across the many aspects of our profession. There is also a Lifetime Achievement Award. The first one was given to Mary Gaudron in 2002. Virginia, our now patron, was similarly honoured in 2009. And they recognise achievement for outstanding women lawyers all over the profession, and that they are just fabulous. And last year's awards were held on the 23rd of August. No, the last awards, I told you last year disappeared. The 2019 awards were held on the 23rd of August. Jane Matthews, our late and beloved patron, would have been there, but she was too ill. She left this world far too early on the 31st of August, and we miss her. We miss her so much. The awards are fabulous. I was bowled over in being honoured with the Lifetime Achievement Award that Larissa awarded to me, and Janet Coombs, Dame Janet, kindly presented. The flowers were fabulous, and the trophy was a distinctive etched glass piece, which was quite heavy. As I left, very excited about the wonderful evening, I caught a taxi. And because it was one of those evenings where you don't carry much with you, I had a little tiny bag into which I'd popped a little bit of cash and I'd left credit cards sort of behind. And so I caught a cab home, paid cash, got out of the taxi, didn't take a receipt, and guess what? The fabulous flowers and the wonderful etched trophy disappeared somewhere into the wherever. So that trophy is probably a fabulous doorstop in someone's home, and I hope the flowers got to adorn some loved one's table for a little while. Fortunately, being a mass production pace, I could order a replacement, which now adorns my shelf, but I was mightily embarrassed to fess up to Larissa to say I left the flowers and the trophy in the cabinet. So, whoever is going to win the award this year, please make sure that they get the award home. Anyway, it was a fine tribute, but the tributes to everyone else are absolutely massively deserved. So I'm very glad that I don't have to talk about sausage dogs, but I now leave it to Renee to give you more detail about the fabulous program and to kick off another brilliant year for women lawyers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All I could think of about sausage dogs was, well, I have a 3-year-old and I watch Bluey and Snickers has very small little legs. The program, as I said, is quite a full agenda and something that I had forgotten, and thank you, Professor, for raising it, is that one of the big items on the agenda for this year for women lawyers is to honour the late Jane Matthews. She was our patron for quite some time. As the Professor said, she is very missed, and she was always supportive and willing to sort of pick up the phone or answer any call that any woman lawyer particularly had. Now, in relation to our program, I gave a little bit of a teaser, and I thought I would just let you know those subcommittees and some of the work that we are looking at doing. So some of our subcommittees this year include our finance, risk and governance, our events and education, which I said earlier will cover the Welcome to the Law. We'll also cover some of our other events, with our major events being the awards dinner in September. We also have our sponsorship, membership, marketing and communications subcommittee, and that will really look at how can we retain the members that we have, but also recruit new members. Part of that will also be looking at ensuring that we don't just cater for those that are Sydney-based, particularly after the last 12 months. We are also used to being online, but hopefully we don't have to do that too much. A hybrid would be quite nice. But we're really looking at engaging with our rural and regional practitioners as well. We currently have regional chapters in Newcastle and Wollongong, but are looking to start new regional chapters, and particularly are looking at the Western Sydney area, which has always had a very growing and very diverse regional law society, but with the university in that area as well, we hope to be able to start our new chapter there. We also have our law reform subcommittee, which will continue to make submissions as it has in the past to various calls from both our state and national government. Equity and leadership, which will really look at and continue the conversation about leadership within the profession, particularly in relation to targets for women. Last year, I think it was, we actually put out what we said was our recommended target for leadership within our law firms. Some of that was taken up. We'd like to continue that conversation because the take-up rate of that was nowhere near enough. We'll also continue the conversation around equitable briefing. Whilst that has been around for some time, when you look at, and there have been slow gains, when you look at who actually has adopted that policy and who reports, the numbers are still quite low. We will also look at, as I said, transparency around remuneration, particularly as we head into the end of financial year. We'll continue with our Welcome to the Law subcommittee. We'll also continue with our sexual harassment, bullying and discrimination subcommittee, which is headed up by our wonderful Alex Grayson, who has been on our executive for the last few years and has really driven the work in that space. And we have our diversity and equality subcommittee. This year, we hope to be much more vocal and continuing both not having that voice not just at state level but also national level, particularly in relation to the sexual harassment, bullying and discrimination, where we will work in conjunction with the Australian Women Lawyers. We also want to hear from our members and are looking at conducting some short surveys throughout the year. We had talked about how many questions, so we actually get feedback. I think we decided, I'm looking at Alex, about 10, no more than 10, because if it goes over a page, as I said, I'm not answering, so I would like all of our members to answer, so we're certainly looking at that. And that will cover such topics as flexible work practices, the impact of COVID, share care, which is a really important thing for women lawyers, as a number of us seem to be doing the juggle, and again, the remuneration. We will also be looking at publishing some position statements, again on such topics as the flexible work practices, sexual harassment and equitable briefing and targets for leadership. Now, all of this sounds like a lot. Some of this won't be done this year, but we're certainly setting it in train and is part of our 3-year strategic plan. We will also be having a number of events, and now that we are all much better at doing things online, we're hoping to be able to conduct those in a hybrid fashion so that we can, again, continue to engage with our regional and rural practitioners. Thank you all very much for coming. I will now let you mingle, chat, enjoy for the next hour or so. I look forward to crossing paths with many of you, if not all of you, this year. And please keep your eye out for calls for assistance, joining our subcommittees and our events. So thank you for attending, and I launch our 2021 program and Achievement Awards. So please look out for those amazing women lawyers who you work with or cross paths with. So thank you very much. Now I'm looking for Catherine. She might be outside. Okay, well there might be just... That's okay. I'll let you all mingle now. Thank you all. And I should say that none of this could have happened without Catherine. I think over the last sort of 2 months, Catherine's been keeping a very close eye on the COVID restrictions and what we could and could not do. Thank goodness that restrictions were lifted and we've all been very well behaved. Otherwise, this would have been a very different event and numbers were severely limited. So thank you very much, Catherine, for bringing us all together. We hope it's the first of many occasions that we could all get together. So thank you.